What if entire crews vanished at sea, leaving behind ships perfectly intact, meals half-eaten, and logbooks frozen mid-sentence? How could vessels drift for months without a single soul aboard? In this video, we'll uncover the haunting truth behind the Mary Celeste and other legendary ghost ships that continue to defy logic and science. Are these disappearances the result of mutiny or something far more unearthly? For centuries, the oceans have been both a lifeline and a graveyard for humanity. Sailors whisper of ships that roam the waves without captains, masts creaking under phantom winds, and lights flickering in the fog. Among these eerie tales stands one name above all, the Mary Celeste, a ship found adrift in perfect condition, but utterly deserted. Today, we'll explore not only her mystery, but also other ghost ships that have puzzled investigators for generations. Prepare yourself, because what we're about to uncover challenges everything we think we know about the sea. Imagine this. It's a cold December morning in 1872. The Atlantic Ocean is restless. The waves roll under a gray sky, and the wind carries the scent of salt and storm. Out there, far from any coastline, a small British brig named Dei Gratia is slicing through the water when her crew spots something strange on the horizon. Another vessel drifting aimlessly. Its sails flutter like tattered ghosts, and it moves with no direction, no signal, no crew visible on deck. Captain David Morehouse raises his spyglass, peers through the fog, and freezes. The ship's name comes into view: Mary Celeste. At first, Morehouse assumes disaster, a wreck perhaps. Maybe survivors clinging somewhere below deck. The sea is no place to drift without purpose, and any ship adrift is usually a graveyard in motion. As Dei Gratia approaches, they call out wave flags, signal for life. No answer, only the sound of the wind howling through the rigging. The Mary Celeste seems almost alive in her silence, gently rocking with the waves as though waiting for someone to come aboard. When Morehouse sends a boarding party over, what they find defies every law of reason. The Mary Celeste is perfectly seaworthy. Her hull is dry. Her cargo, 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, is still intact, untouched. The galley shows signs of normal life. Half-eaten food sits on the table. The captain's logbook rests on his desk, the last entry dated just 10 days before the ship was found. The cabins are neat, clothing folded, and personal belongings carefully stored away. But there isn't a single living soul on board. Not a sound, not a trace of struggle. Not even a drop of blood. The lifeboat is missing. That's the only clue. It looks as though the crew simply climbed in and rowed away into the endless sea, abandoning a ship that could have easily carried them home. But why? The weather had been calm for days. The Mary Celeste had no sign of damage, no broken masts, no leaks, no evidence of pirates or a collision. And yet the ship drifts, ghost-like, in the middle of nowhere. To understand why this discovery shook the world, you need to know what the Mary Celeste was. She was an American brigantine, a strong vessel built to endure transatlantic voyages. Her captain, Benjamin Briggs, was known as a careful, religious man devoted to his wife and daughter, both of whom were on board for this journey. Along with 7 experienced sailors, he set sail from New York on November 7, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. There was nothing unusual about the trip. Calm seas, fair weather, and a well-maintained ship. Every sailor's log, every letter sent before departure spoke of routine confidence. And yet, within weeks, the entire crew would vanish as if swallowed by the sea itself. When Dei Gratia's men towed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, an official investigation began. Authorities combed through the ship for answers. They found the hull completely sound. The cargo untouched, except for a few barrels that had leaked, slightly harmless enough. The pumps were working, the sails functional. Even the compass and navigation charts were in order. But one thing stood out. The ship's clock was stopped, and the navigation log ended abruptly without sign of distress. It was as though time itself had frozen mid-voyage. The theories came in waves. Some claimed pirates attacked, but there was no damage or plunder. Others thought the crew mutinied against Captain Briggs, but mutineers don't usually leave behind all the supplies and cargo untouched. A more chilling theory suggested that the alcohol in the cargo hold may have leaked, filling the ship with invisible fumes that frightened the crew into abandoning ship, fearing an explosion. But even then, why would they leave so suddenly, without taking extra food, water, or navigation tools? No sign of panic was recorded. No personal belongings were missing. It looked like a calm, deliberate evacuation. Yet no one was ever seen again. As newspapers got hold of the story, the legend began to spread. "Ghost ship found in perfect condition, crew vanished," screamed the headlines. Writers and spiritualists called it a curse. They claimed the Mary Celeste was haunted, that something unnatural had happened at sea. Some even believed sea monsters or alien forces had taken the crew. The mystery gripped the public imagination, and the ship's name became synonymous with the unexplainable. The truth was even stranger because the Mary Celeste had already carried an aura of misfortune long before her infamous voyage. Her previous captain had died suddenly at sea. The ship had been damaged multiple times during earlier trips, and sailors whispered she was cursed. When Captain Briggs agreed to command her, friends warned him she was an unlucky vessel. He laughed it off, confident in his seamanship. But perhaps he knew, deep down, that the sea never forgets. Months after her discovery, the Mary Celeste was sold off, refitted, and sent back to sea, but she never escaped her reputation. Every sailor who served aboard her spoke of strange occurrences. Voices at night, sudden chills, eerie lights flickering across the deck. The ship eventually met her end years later, wrecked off the coast of Haiti under mysterious circumstances. Some say she was deliberately scuttled for insurance fraud, others that she was simply doomed from the beginning. But her true mystery, what happened that day in 1872, remains unsolved to this day. Even after endless investigations, no trace of the missing crew was ever found. No bodies washed ashore. No lifeboat was ever recovered. It's as if the Atlantic opened up and swallowed them whole, leaving behind only the ghost of their passage. A silent ship adrift under a merciless sky, her sails whispering the secret she would never tell. The moment the Mary Celeste was towed into Gibraltar and the world heard the story, the theories began pouring in like a storm tide. How could a ship be found perfectly intact, well-stocked, with its sails raised and cargo untouched, yet missing every single person who was supposed to be aboard? The case baffled investigators, scientists, and sailors alike, each one trying to explain the unexplainable. And over the years, these theories have ranged from the logical to the downright otherworldly. The first and most obvious idea was mutiny. To many, it made sense to end people on a small vessel for weeks at sea. Cramped quarters, stress, and the endless monotony of the ocean could push anyone to the edge. Perhaps the crew turned on Captain Benjamin Briggs, murdered him and his family, and then fled in the lifeboat. But this idea fell apart almost instantly. There was no sign of violence. No blood, no damage to the ship, and no personal valuables missing. Even the captain's logbook and navigation tools were still on board. The Mary Celeste showed no signs of chaos, no broken doors or smashed furniture. Everything was in eerie order, as though time had simply stopped. If not mutiny, then maybe pirates. The 1800s Atlantic waters were known for opportunistic raiders, though far fewer than the Caribbean's infamous corsairs. Pirates could have intercepted the ship, taken the crew, and left the vessel adrift. But again, nothing was stolen. Not the cargo, not the supplies, not the personal items. What kind of pirate leaves behind 1,700 barrels of valuable industrial alcohol? It didn't make sense. Then came the scientific minds, determined to root out the mystery with logic. One theory that gained traction was that of an explosion. The cargo of denatured alcohol, highly flammable, might have leaked fumes into the ship's hold. Imagine the crew smelling gas, realizing the deadly danger, and abandoning ship in a panic, believing it could explode at any second. The only problem is, there was no evidence of fire or blast damage. Some of the barrels were indeed leaking, but the hold was not dangerously filled with fumes. And if the crew had left in fear of an explosion, why had they not returned once the danger passed? The sea was calm. The lifeboat, if used, should have been easily spotted or recovered. Yet nothing, no wreckage, no bodies, no clues. Another theory suggests natural disaster. A seaquake, a sudden rogue wave, or a violent waterspout could have struck unexpectedly. Such forces could terrify any captain into abandoning ship, especially if he believed the vessel was sinking. But again, the Mary Celeste was in near-perfect condition. The hull was dry, the cargo undisturbed. The logbook entries showed nothing alarming. The weather reports from nearby ships described clear skies. It was as if no natural event had taken place at all. As the practical explanations failed, people began turning to the mysterious. Some claimed that the Mary Celeste had sailed through the Bermuda Triangle. Though that's not geographically true, she was far from it, but that didn't stop the legend. Writers and storytellers began imagining supernatural forces at play. Perhaps the ship had crossed into another dimension or passed through a portal where time itself twisted. Others whispered that a curse had followed the ship from her earlier misfortunes. Every voyage before 1872 seemed to bring some kind of trouble deaths, accidents, near wrecks. Sailors started saying she was a jinxed vessel, doomed to claim the souls of those who sailed her. And then there were the truly strange claims. In 1940, a novelist named Lawrence Keating published a story suggesting that the Mary Celeste was attacked by a giant squid, an enormous creature, dragging crew members overboard one by one. The idea might sound absurd, but the open ocean breeds stories like that. Tales of tentacles rising from the depths, ships pulled under by unseen monsters. Some swore they'd seen things out there that couldn't be explained by science. And for a ship found so pristine yet so empty, even the wildest theories started to sound plausible. But the supernatural didn't stop with sea monsters. In the 20th century, paranormal researchers began connecting the Mary Celeste to patterns found in other ghost ship cases. Ships like the Ourang Medan, whose crew was found dead with eyes wide open, frozen in terror, or the Flying Dutchman, doomed to sail the seas forever. People started to wonder if the Mary Celeste was part of something bigger, an unseen phenomenon that replays itself through time. Some suggested time slips, where a crew might vanish into another plane of existence, leaving their ship behind like a phantom shell. Others whispered about alien abductions, pointing to the suddenness, the total absence of life, and the eerie preservation of everything else. Yet one of the most chilling theories doesn't rely on monsters, curses, or storms. It relies on human fear. Imagine Captain Briggs waking one night to the smell of alcohol fumes below deck. He fears an explosion. He gathers his family and crew, lowers them into the lifeboat, tying it with a rope to the ship so they can stay close until it is safe to return. But what if the rope snaps? What if a sudden gust or wave separates them in the dark? The Mary Celeste, empty, begins to drift one way. And the lifeboat, carrying everyone aboard, disappears into the endless blue. No one to see, no one to save them. Just silence. A small, logical mistake leading to eternal mystery. Still, even this reasonable theory feels incomplete. It doesn't explain why every clue seems so deliberate. The sails trimmed, the logs stopped mid-entry, the cabins untouched. Something about it all feels staged, almost too perfect. Like a story written by the ocean itself, designed to keep its secret forever. Theories came and went: mutiny, piracy, gas explosions, supernatural curses, alien intervention, but the truth has never surfaced. Every explanation adds another layer instead of peeling one away. And with every retelling, the Mary Celeste drifts further into myth, becoming not just a mystery of the sea, but a reflection of something deeper, our own inability to accept that sometimes the answer is simply aren't there. The Mary Celeste may be the most famous ghost ship in history, but she is far from alone. The ocean is vast, covering over 70% of our planet, and within its depths lie stories that blur the line between fact and nightmare. For centuries, sailors have told tales of vessels adrift on moonlit waves, their decks empty, their sails torn but still catching wind. Ships that appear out of fog, glide silently across the sea, and vanish as suddenly as they came. These are the ghost ships, floating enigmas that refuse to die, forever haunting the imagination of those who dare to cross the open ocean. One of the oldest and most chilling legends is that of the Flying Dutchman. The name alone has become a synonym for cursed seafarers and doomed voyages. The story dates back to the 17th century, when a Dutch captain named Hendrik van der Dicken allegedly defied a violent storm near the Cape of Good Hope. The wind screamed. The waves towered higher than his ship's masts, and the crew begged him to turn back. But the captain, driven by pride or madness, swore he would sail around the Cape even if it took him until Judgment Day. That moment, it is said, sealed his fate. His ship was swallowed by lightning and storm, cursed by the sea to sail forever, never to reach port again. For hundreds of years, sailors have claimed to see the Flying Dutchman gliding across distant waves, glowing with an unearthly light. Even members of royal fleets, including Prince George of Wales in the 19th century, reported witnessing the spectral ship. She would appear suddenly, sails full though no wind blew, crewed by shadowy figures that seemed more mist than flesh. To see her was considered a dreadful omen, proof that death or disaster was near. And yet, despite countless sightings, no one has ever truly captured evidence of the Flying Dutchman. Like the Mary Celeste, she drifts between truth and legend, an eternal riddle carved into the ocean's memory. But not all ghost ships belong to distant centuries. In 1947, another vessel would add a terrifying chapter to maritime lore, the SS Ourang Medan, a Dutch freighter. She was found drifting in the Strait of Malacca, her radio sending out a distress call that chilled everyone who heard it. The message came in broken, frightened tones, all officers, including Captain, dead, lying in chart room and on bridge, possibly whole crew dead. There was a pause, static hissing across the receiver, and then one final message. I die. When rescuers finally reached the Ourang Medan, they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. The entire crew was dead, every single one of them. But there were no injuries, no signs of violence or struggle. The bodies were scattered across the decks, eyes wide open, mouths frozen in expressions of sheer horror. Even the ship's dog was found dead, teeth bared in terror. The air was heavy with something strange, something invisible. And before investigators could uncover what had happened, the ship suddenly caught fire and exploded, sinking into the depths of the ocean. No one ever found her wreck. Theories have since ranged from chemical leaks to supernatural forces, but nothing truly explains what terrified an entire crew to death in perfect silence. The sea, it seems, keeps repeating its pattern: vessels found adrift, abandoned, and utterly lifeless. In 1955, the Drogheda, a merchant vessel sailing between Samoa and the Tokelau Islands, was discovered floating high in the water with no one aboard. Like the Mary Celeste, her cargo was untouched. Her radio still working, but her passengers, 25 of them, had disappeared without a trace. The only clues were blood-stained bandages, a doctor's bag, and the lifeboats missing. Investigators found the ship was still buoyant and should never have been abandoned. Theories spread: mutiny, pirates, equipment failure. But as the months passed, it became clear that no one would ever know for sure. The Drogheda became another ghost ship, another name added to the ocean's long list of mysteries. Even in our modern age of GPS tracking and satellite communication, ghost ships continue to appear. In 2007, the yacht Kaz II was discovered off the coast of Australia, drifting under a clear sky. The engine was still running, a laptop was open on the table, and lunch was neatly set for 3. But the 3 men who owned and crewed the yacht were gone. The video footage recovered from the onboard camera showed the men enjoying calm seas just hours before they vanished. No distress call, no evidence of foul play, no trace of where they went. Experts said the scene was eerily similar to the Mary Celeste: everything normal, everything in place except for the people. These stories, spread across centuries and continents, share one haunting detail: an unsettling calm. Ghost ships are rarely found in ruins or chaos. They are discovered almost as if someone had simply stood up, walked away, and dissolved into the air. Food remains uneaten, instruments are left mid-use. Clocks stop at odd times, and compasses spin without reason. It's as if an unseen hand reaches out of the sea and plucks the living from the decks, leaving only the shell of their journey behind. And sailors know there's something uniquely terrifying about that silence. The ocean is already a place of power, mystery, and endless depth. When you add to it the idea of a ship sailing itself, a vessel stripped of human presence yet somehow still moving with purpose, it becomes almost alive in its emptiness. The ghost ship is more than a legend, it's a warning, a reflection of how small we truly are against the vastness of the sea. Every age brings new technology, new navigation systems, and new safety protocols. But none of them seem to stop the reappearance of these drifting phantoms. The Flying Dutchman, the Ourang Medan, the Joyita, the Kaz II, each one a reminder that the sea keeps secrets no man can force it to reveal. The Mary Celeste may have started the fascination, but she was only one chapter in a much older story. A story written not in ink, but in waves, wind, and whispers that echo across the open waters, waiting for the next ship to vanish into legend. The human mind has always tried to make sense of the unexplainable, especially when it comes to the mysteries of the ocean. For centuries, we've turned to legends, curses, and supernatural tales to fill the gaps where science couldn't. But what if the truth behind the world's ghost ships, including the Mary Celeste, isn't mystical at all? What if the ocean itself, through its unpredictable power and hidden forces, creates these haunting disappearances? Scientists, oceanographers, and maritime experts have spent generations trying to decode what could possibly make entire crews vanish without a trace while leaving their ships eerily untouched. The ocean, after all, is far from a calm blue paradise. Beneath its shimmering surface lies one of the most dangerous and least understood environments on Earth. Massive pressure changes, magnetic disturbances, underwater gas eruptions, rogue waves, each capable of turning an ordinary voyage into a deadly encounter. And sometimes it's not what we see that matters, but what we don't. One of the most discussed scientific explanations for ghost ship phenomena involves methane hydrate eruptions. These frozen pockets of methane gas rest beneath the seafloor, especially in the North Atlantic, the very region where the Mary Celeste was found. If a large enough methane bubble suddenly burst, it could reduce the density of the water, making a ship lose buoyancy and partially sink or lurch violently without warning. The gas could also seep into the air, potentially causing dizziness, hallucinations, or panic among the crew. A frightened captain might think the ship was doomed, order everyone into lifeboats, and watch in horror as the calm returned just as quickly as it vanished. The ship would remain safe, afloat, and ghostly empty. Another natural suspect is the rogue wave, a wall of water that appears out of nowhere, taller than any ship, and capable of swallowing vessels whole. Though once dismissed as sailor folklore, rogue waves are now proven by satellite data and modern science. They strike without warning, sometimes in clear weather, with the force of several tons per square meter. A ship hit by one could sustain enough shock to sweep its crew overboard or damage communication lines, while the vessel itself survives. When the seas calm, all that remains is the ship adrift and silent, its story erased by the tide. But not every theory is born from violence. Some researchers believe subtle, psychological factors play a greater role than we realize. The ocean's emptiness can distort perception. A rolling fog, a change in air pressure, or even a shift in magnetic fields can create disorientation. Compasses spin erratically, instruments malfunction, and sailors begin to lose their sense of direction. It's easy to imagine a moment of confusion turning into mass panic. One wrong decision, one mistaken reading, and an entire crew could believe they were doomed, even if they were perfectly safe. In the endless expanse of the ocean, fear can be as deadly as any storm. Then there's the science of sound, specifically infrasound. These are low-frequency vibrations generated by the ocean, earthquakes, or even wind passing over certain structures. Though inaudible to the human ear, infrasound can cause anxiety, nausea, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Some scientists suggest that these vibrations could explain why some crews appeared to have abandoned ships that were perfectly seaworthy. Imagine a deep, resonating hum vibrating through the hull, making every breath feel uneasy, every second unbearable. A feeling so powerful it convinces an entire crew that something unnatural is happening. In such a state, rational thought disappears, fear becomes command. They leave, desperate to escape what they can't see or name, and the sea swallows their trail. Even the weather itself can become an accomplice in these mysteries. The ocean's surface can shift in moments from calm blue to violent gray, from stillness to hurricane. Waterspouts, miniature tornadoes that spin over the ocean, can appear without warning, ripping sails apart and sweeping crew members into the sky. Yet these same storms can vanish in minutes, leaving a peaceful sea behind. A ship like the Mary Celeste could have experienced one of these freak phenomena, its crew forced to flee in terror, only for the calm to return, making the vessel look untouched, perfectly normal, and eerily quiet. But perhaps the most haunting scientific theory lies in what sailors call electrical seas. The Earth's magnetic field is particularly unstable over certain regions of the ocean, like the Sargasso Sea, a place eerily close to where the Mary Celeste was found. Ships passing through these zones report strange compass readings, malfunctioning instruments, and even glowing balls of light, a phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire. This natural electrical discharge can dance across masts and rigging, appearing as ghostly blue flames. To a 19th century sailor with little understanding of atmospheric electricity, this could easily look like a supernatural event, a warning, or a curse. And if panic took hold, it might be enough to drive an entire crew into the lifeboats, never to return. Science also reminds us that not all mysteries need massive forces to unfold. Sometimes a small, perfectly ordinary event spirals into tragedy. A crew member falls ill, another panics. A simple misunderstanding of the captain's orders causes confusion. A rope snaps, a storm shifts course, a lifeboat drifts a few meters too far. The ocean doesn't forgive mistakes, it magnifies them. A single error can turn a routine voyage into an eternal enigma. The Mary Celeste, like other ghost ships, has been studied through every scientific lens available, from maritime archaeology to modern forensic oceanography. Each new study adds a piece to the puzzle, but never the full picture. The physical evidence remains stubbornly neutral, as if mocking our search for logic. The sails, the cargo, the calm, everything says normal, yet the absence of human life screams the opposite. And that's where science collides with mystery. Because for every theory that seems to make sense, another rises from the depths to challenge it. The ocean is too vast, too ancient, too unpredictable to ever give up all its secrets. And so, these ships remain between worlds, half explained by science, half claimed by the unknown. There is a saying among sailors, the ocean doesn't kill you quickly, it breaks your mind first. The endless blue horizon, the rhythmic crashing of waves, and the isolation from the rest of humanity can change a person in ways no landlocked soul could ever understand. For the crews of ghost ships like the Mary Celeste, the real mystery might not lie in storms or supernatural forces, but in the fragile psychology of human beings pushed to their limits. The ocean is vast, unforgiving, and silent. And when silence becomes your only companion, it's not long before fear begins to whisper louder than reason. Imagine being trapped for weeks, even months, in a small wooden vessel surrounded by nothing but sea. The same faces, the same routines, the same emptiness stretching for thousands of miles. You wake to the sound of creaking timbers, you eat while the waves rock you like a cradle, and you sleep knowing that a single mistake could mean death. There are no cities on the horizon, no lights at night, only darkness. Day after day, the mind begins to play tricks. A ripple in the water becomes a shadow. A flicker in the fog looks like a figure. Paranoia grows like a storm cloud waiting to break. Captain Benjamin Briggs of the Mary Celeste was known as a calm, disciplined man, but even the strongest minds aren't immune to the psychological toll of the sea. The isolation, the monotony, the weight of responsibility. Commanding a ship meant balancing life and death every single day. If something unusual happened, a strange sound from the cargo hold, a sudden shift in weather, a malfunctioning compass, it could set off a chain reaction of fear. The crew looks to the captain. The captain feels the pressure of 10 lives depending on his judgment, and suddenly even the smallest uncertainty feels like a threat. One moment of panic, one bad decision, and an entire crew could be lost to the ocean without a trace. There's another layer to this story, the influence of superstition. Sailors are by nature deeply superstitious people. They live in a world where the boundary between nature and myth often feels razor thin. They believe in omens, birds that fly the wrong way, sudden changes in wind, or strange lights in the distance. To them, every unusual sound or sign could mean disaster. The Mary Celeste, already considered an unlucky ship because of her troubled past, carried that reputation with her. If strange occurrences began during the voyage, odd noises from the cargo hold, flickering lights, or sickness among the crew, it wouldn't take much to convince sailors that they were cursed. Fear feeds on itself, and at sea it spreads like fire. But fear alone doesn't always come from superstition. Sometimes it comes from something even more: human mistrust. Life aboard a 19th century vessel was a delicate ecosystem. A small crew, confined quarters, strict hierarchy. Every man depended on the others for survival, but that dependence came with tension. Misunderstandings could quickly escalate. A disagreement over navigation, a rumor of sabotage, a captain's strict discipline, any spark could ignite resentment. And resentment, when mixed with fear and isolation, can become deadly. Some historians have suggested that the Mary Celeste's crew may have turned against one another, not in violent mutiny, but in desperate confusion. Maybe a shout in the night was mistaken for an order to abandon ship. Maybe someone panicked, believing the vessel was sinking, and others followed blindly into the lifeboat. Then there's the psychological power of the unknown itself. At sea, the horizon offers no answers. The ocean hides everything. Its depths are darker than any cave, its silence deeper than any forest. That uncertainty seeps into the mind, creating a sense of helplessness. When you can't see what surrounds you, your imagination fills in the blanks. To a crew in the middle of the Atlantic, far from rescue, every splash, every gust, every distant echo could mean danger. The fear of what might happen often outweighs the reality of what is. Panic can become contagious, spreading through a ship faster than any storm. And then we must consider what isolation does to perception. Scientists today understand the effects of sensory deprivation, the way the mind begins to distort reality when cut off from stimulation. On the open sea, the endless repetition of sights and sounds can have the same effect. The boundaries between dream and waking blur. A sailor might think he saw something in the mist, another might hear voices in the wind. Slowly, the line between rational thought and illusion fades. In such a fragile state, even a small misunderstanding could spiral into chaos. A frightened crew might believe the ship was cursed or doomed, taking drastic action to escape what they thought was certain death. The case of the Mary Celeste shows signs of this subtle psychological decay. The ship was found in perfect condition, no evidence of struggle, no damage, no theft. That alone suggests that the decision to abandon her wasn't driven by violence or necessity, but by fear. A collective moment of irrational panic, born from weeks of pressure, could explain everything. The missing lifeboat, the calm decks, the eerie stillness. They didn't flee from danger, they fled from their own mind's creation of it. Even in modern times, psychological breakdowns at sea still occur. Sailors and researchers who've spent months isolated on ships or submarines report hallucinations, sudden fits of anxiety, and deep, inexplicable dread. The mind, when trapped in monotony and isolation, begins to unravel. And in the 1800s, with no modern understanding of mental health, no radios, no external contact, that unraveling could be fatal. The ocean was not just a place, it was a test of sanity. What makes ghost ships like the Mary Celeste so haunting isn't just their physical emptiness. It's the idea that the real terror might not have come from outside at all, but from within. That the vast, unending ocean didn't swallow the crew by force, but by driving them to believe they had no choice but to flee. Fear, after all, doesn't need waves or wind to destroy. It only needs silence, time, and a mind that can no longer tell the difference between safety and doom even after more than a century. The mystery of the Mary Celeste refuses to fade away. It's as if the ship herself became more than just a vessel. She became a symbol of the sea's eternal enigma, a ghostly reminder that some stories are not meant to be solved. From the moment her empty hull was discovered drifting silently in 1872, the Mary Celeste entered not just maritime history, but the realm of legend. And as years passed, her legacy only grew stronger, feeding tales of curses, conspiracies, and supernatural forces that continue to haunt sailors, storytellers, and mystery seekers to this very day. After her eerie discovery, the Mary Celeste was towed to Gibraltar for investigation, and what followed was chaos. The British Admiralty Court, puzzled and suspicious, launched an in-depth inquiry that only deepened the confusion. There was no sign of foul play, no damage to suggest attack or storm, and the cargo of industrial alcohol was almost entirely intact. It was as though the crew had vanished mid-meal, leaving behind their clothes, personal belongings, and even a working ship with full provisions. The investigators' conclusion was hesitant. They ruled out piracy, mutiny, and explosion, but offered no explanation. That vacuum of answers gave birth to something more powerful than facts: myth. Soon, the Mary Celeste became a legend told in dockside taverns, whispered in sailors' quarters, and printed in newspapers across the world. Writers and journalists couldn't resist her allure. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, before creating Sherlock Holmes, wrote a fictionalized account titled J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement that painted the Mary Celeste as a cursed, haunted ship. The story went viral by 19th century standards and forever blurred the line between reality and fiction. From that moment, the Mary Celeste was no longer just a mystery of the sea. She was a ghost story with a pulse, her name echoing across oceans as a metaphor for fear of the unknown. But her story didn't end with her discovery. The Mary Celeste continued to sail for over a decade after being salvaged, though her voyages seemed plagued by misfortune. She changed owners several times, each captain meeting with strange or tragic circumstances. One ran her aground. Another suffered financial ruin. It was as if the ship carried a curse, a lingering energy from that fateful voyage in 1872. Sailors began to refuse to serve aboard her, claiming she brought bad luck to anyone who dared command her. In 1885, her final owner intentionally wrecked her off the coast of Haiti in a failed insurance scam. The Mary Celeste sank beneath the waves, but her legend didn't. If anything, her sinking only sealed her fate as a maritime ghost forever bound to the deep. Throughout the 20th century, the Mary Celeste's name became synonymous with mystery. Every new report of an abandoned vessel drifting aimlessly on the sea was compared to her. A new Mary Celeste, the newspapers would call it. And indeed, there have been many. The SS Ourang Medan in 1947, whose entire crew was found dead with frozen expressions of terror. The Carroll A in 1921, discovered off Cape Hatteras with her crew gone and dinner still set on the table. The Kaz II in 2007, a modern yacht found adrift near Australia with no sign of struggle and no crew in sight. Each of these ghost ships added another echo to the legacy that began with the Mary Celeste, proof that the mystery of the sea never truly ends, it only repeats. Even scientists and historians can't seem to let go. Over the years, countless theories have resurfaced, from plausible to bizarre. Methanol fumes from leaking barrels, they say, might have led the crew to abandon ship out of fear of explosion. Others claim rogue waves or waterspouts lifted the lifeboat away, leaving them stranded. But none of these theories fully explain the calm orderliness of the ship, the eerie normalcy that haunted those who found her. The mystery remains just beyond reach, like something the ocean refuses to give back. Culturally, the Mary Celeste represents more than just a vanished crew. It represents humanity's relationship with the unknown. We are drawn to her story because it forces us to confront our fear of uncertainty. We crave answers, yet we are fascinated by the fact that there are none. Every generation reinterprets the Mary Celeste in its own way. To the Victorians, she was a warning about man's hubris against nature. To mid-century storytellers, she was a ghost story wrapped in salt and fog. To modern audiences, she's a psychological puzzle and exploration of what isolation, fear, and paranoia can do when far from the eyes of the world. Her influence has even reached pop culture. Movies, novels, and documentaries continue to resurrect her tale. Each retelling adds a new layer to the legend, a suggestion of alien abduction, sea monsters, or time slips. The truth doesn't seem to matter anymore. What matters is the haunting image of a ship drifting silently, crewless across an endless horizon. That image has become eternal, a visual symbol of mystery itself. The ocean has always been the last frontier of the unknown, and the Mary Celeste remains its most haunting relic. Even today, when satellites scan the seas and GPS tracks every voyage, the thought of a ship vanishing without a trace still chills us. It reminds us that, despite all our technology, there are places the human mind can explain and forces the human spirit can control. Mary Celeste stands as a ghostly ambassador of that truth, a vessel caught forever between fact and myth, sanity and madness, life and legend. And so, her story continues to drift, just as she once did across the Atlantic. Every retelling, every investigation, every whisper of a new ghost ship carries her memory forward. The Mary Celeste's true legacy isn't the disappearance of her crew, it's the eternal echo of wonder and fear she left behind, a question that sails through time, unanswered, unstoppable, and unforgotten. As we come to the end of this haunting voyage through the story of the Mary Celeste and other ghost ships, one thing becomes clear: the ocean is not just a body of water. It's a living mystery, a force that guards its secrets more fiercely than any vault. The Mary Celeste may have been found adrift over a century ago, but the silence of her decks still speaks louder than any discovery ever could. Her missing crew, her untouched cargo, and her eerie calm remain one of history's greatest enigmas, a riddle that continues to defy logic and science alike. Every ghost ship we've explored, from the Ourang Medan to the Carroll A, adds to that eerie symphony of unanswered questions. They drift through time not as mere wrecks, but as echoes of fear, isolation, and the unknown. Each vessel is a floating monument to humanity's fragile understanding of the forces that rule the seas. Whether it's madness, mutiny, supernatural interference, or simply the brutal unpredictability of nature, one truth endures: when man sets sail, he's never truly in control. The ocean decides who returns and who disappears into legend. Mary Celeste's legacy survives because it speaks to something deeper than maritime mystery. It reflects our eternal curiosity and our unease with what we can explain. Every time her story is told, we're reminded that not all answers are meant to be found. Some mysteries exist to humble us, to remind us that even in a world of satellites and sonar, the unknown still reigns supreme beneath the waves. So the next time you gaze out at the open sea and see a ship's silhouette vanishing into the horizon, remember the Mary Celeste. Remember the countless others who vanished without a sound. Because somewhere out there, in the endless expanse of blue, their stories are still drifting, untold, unanswered, and unforgettable.